Hi, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter from Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. I am your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer. This guy next to me is not only a great friend and an employee, but he is my assistant beat writer doing a great job as we cover the Raiders, the great Zeke Trezevant. Zeke, well, what a difference a week makes.
Hondo, it has been a week. It has been a whirlwind. Things haven't stopped for you nor myself in the last 72 hours. And obviously it's been the same way for the guys in the front office of the team. So it's been a crazy few days, but an exciting few days as well.
Sure has. Zeke, so let's go back and walk through this. I don't think any of us thought Josh McDaniels was doing an outstanding job. It's when you and I talked about it numerous times. I just kept telling you it's our job to report news, not to create news. And we asked tough questions. We made it clear your process isn't working. But we also knew that assurances had been given after the Patriots game that they were going to be back. I don't think Mark Davis in any way lied. I think Mark Davis just read the tea leaves and realized I like where they sold me that they wanted to go. I just no longer believe they can get us there. And there's a couple things that I'm hoping come out of this firing. And number one is this narrative that Mark's broke. If Mark was broke, there would not have been a firing. He's not since he moved to Vegas. You may question him as an owner, but you can't question him as a businessman. The company's tripled in value, the franchise, and they're rolling in cash. That's the first narrative. But the second narrative, and you and I have discussed this, fans are called fans because it comes from the word fanatic.
Fanatic.
And I know they care. You know they care. Um, One of the things that I constantly say, and I get criticized for it, and I'm fine with that. I don't care. You and I are paid to be at the games. We're paid to be at the facility. The players are paid, security's paid, PR's paid, owners are paid, the hot dog salesman's paid. The only one who doesn't get paid and is the one paying us is the fan. And I think I understand why fans get angry and say, why doesn't Mark care? But we would tell him he did. I think this demonstrates it as well. What do you think of those two narratives? And do you think it's time for those to die?
100%. I think the first one dies pretty hard in terms of Mark not having the money. Honestly, even aside from firing or not firing Josh McDaniels and the number that comes with it in terms of his contract, I feel like to think that Mark Davis is broke in any kind of way or doesn't have money between all the different revenue streams that an owner can grab money from, I think that's ignorant. And then obviously, like you said, with him actually pulling the trigger and letting go of McDaniels, I think that kind of confirms it there. So I think the Raiders going forward, they are in a position where they can try to turn things around. We'll see how they do. I think they're on the right track in terms of getting Coach Antonio Pierce in there, a player's coach for to make it quick. I think it's going to be interesting to see where they go from here.
Zeke, you know this, and you know who, but I've never made that public, so don't. But after the Patriots win, I got a text from a player talking about how happy they were for Josh. And I reported on that. I did report on that Wednesday when they came back. That night, the player texted me and was a little frustrated because they said it was like it didn't even matter to Josh. It was just get back to the process, back to the process, back to the you don't get high, you don't get low. It's just the process. And you may remember I told you sitting in the press room, if they lose at Chicago, I'm going to ask them, do you now scrap the process? And I told you it was because of that player's text. And I think you and I were both surprised that Josh didn't lose the locker room. And because usually when teams start to lose the way this one did, that happened. It didn't happen. People were frustrated. We talked about that. but they didn't turn on Josh. I mean, even Devontae yesterday making it clear, I want to thank Josh for bringing me here. To me, that was the strangest thing, that he didn't lose the locker room, and that shocked me. Didn't mean people weren't frustrated, but there's nobody in there bad mouthing that they hate Josh. Nobody was happy to see him. I think there was relief, but the thing that got me was his system, his process almost took the fun out of the game of football. And I think Antonio Pierce, man,
Yeah.
injected that team. Your thoughts?
No, you hit it right on the head. And honestly, just aside from, so two things, a couple of things. One, I want you to know, you said that the players pointed it out to you in terms of Josh's demeanor, Josh's system, in terms of how things never really changed. It took the fun out of things. I think that was a huge portion of the frustrations that the players were feeling, the system not working. You mentioned it, and actually Josh mentioned it too. Mentioned this as well in terms of how he basically kept the same demeanor whether they won or whether they lost. Josh McDaniels admitted to that, his own words. He said that, hey, that's how I keep things in perspective. So I think that could be a good thing at times. But when you're dealing with players that are putting their bodies on the line and they're putting their minds on the line every day, physically, mentally, that's hard to not even to be the same guy after a win, after a loss. These players want to see emotion. They want to feel emotion. And I think that's what Antonio Pierce does. In terms of the situation they were in, I do think the fact that Josh did not lose the locker room honestly kind of made things difficult, because then it was a little bit harder to pinpoint what was going on. And in this situation, there were so many different facets of what was going on that was making the locker room the way it was, that they had to do something about it and make a change.
Yeah, they did. And again, I've been doing this a long time, and I'll be honest, I've been in a lot of situations where coaches get fired, and the fact that he didn't lose that locker room to me is something fascinating. I took a ton of notes, so one day when I write my book, there's things I'll be able to share then I can't share now. But to me, that was, and even Mark Davis, who was talking to players, they were making him aware of frustrations, but nobody was coming out. I think we need to change the coach. That's the
Yeah.
thing that gets me. All right. I want to go in a little bit of a different direction. You know this because you and I've talked about this even before I hired you. I root for good people. I'm not a fan.
Yeah.
I just root for good. It's one of the reasons I wanted to hire you. One of the first things I identified is, yeah, he's a good journalist, but he's a great guy. I
I
like to
appreciate it.
be around good people. I always get mocked in my podcast because I'll say, hey, this guy's been a friend of mine for X amount of years. Well, they have, because I keep those people around me.
Yeah.
When I find good people, I stick with good people.
Yes, sir.
You're one of those guys. And um, I'll tell you another story in a minute. But anyways, the thing that I'm rooting for Champ Kelly to get this job permanently, and I'm rooting for Antonio Pierce because they're good guys.
Yeah.
I think it was a bold move by Antonio. Okay, you want to make me the coach? Great. Mick's gone. We're elevating Bo. I expect to see more bubble screens. I expect to see more regular screens, more slants, quick outs. I expect to see the deep ball more as a threat, more play action, and running the football. I mean, I think it was a great move to make the change to go with Bo. I I like it, and I'm not a fan, but I'm rooting for those two. I don't know if you heard, but the other night I was on CBS Sports, and I got a little impassioned, is the
Yeah.
word fans use, because I have really learned to love Raider Nation. Um, they are the St. Louis Cardinal fans of baseball, the Indiana Hoosier fans of college basketball, the Nebraska Cornhusker fans of college football, the Detroit Red Wings, Montreal Canadiens of pro hockey, and the LA Laker fans of pro basketball, meaning they're the best in that group. They know the game, they understand the game. I I keep thinking about that guy holding that sign, "We deserve better." And these are good people.
Yeah.
Raider Nation, they get such a terrible reputation. They are just good people. And I'm rooting for them. I like Mark Davis. I know you do too. I like him. I'm rooting for Mark. His
Yeah,
dad cast a big shadow, and
huge.
I'm rooting for him. I'm rooting for Antonio. I'm rooting for Champ. I'm rooting for Max. I'm rooting
Yeah.
for Devontae. A superstar takes less money
Mhm.
to come here. And then people say he's acting like a diva. No, divas go to the team that offers the most money.
Mhm.
This is such a collaboration of good people.
Yes.
Man, I want this to work out. How about you?
Yes, I mean just the vibe when Champ Kelly sat down, Antonio Pierce sat down. Obviously, AP gives you he gives you the vibe. He gives you very intense, very passionate guy. And then you had Champ right next to him, almost I don't want to say polar opposite, but he kind of evened the two out, right? Champ, you can just tell by the words he used, the demeanor he had the whole day. Just a good guy. I mean, the guy just got the opportunity of a lifetime, and the first thing he said was, "Happy birthday to my daughter," right? I love my wife, right? So the guy, you know, his demeanor speaks for itself. His track record speaks for itself. And like you said, you have AP, you have Champ, you have the guys in the locker room. We root for all of them. We rooted for Josh McDaniels, right? He was a good person as well. But there is definitely a different vibe around this team. It seems like between Kelly and Pierce that these guys are just a little bit more. They have a little bit more of a human element to it. Whether it's because of AP's playing days or Kelly's experience, there's something different going on in the locker room for sure.
Well, I want to tell you something that I heard yesterday from a player. It may have even been early this morning. Time runs
Yeah,
together,
it's
but it
running
was
together.
either late. Yeah. That after Champ had his first meeting, the room erupted. And it wasn't woohoo, bang, bang, the witch is dead. Josh is out of here. But it was like football's back.
Yeah.
And I had a player say this to me, and I got to run this by you, but he basically said, and I'm paraphrasing, we risk our lives to play this game. Yes, we make a ton of money, but we risk injury, CTE, all of those things. And if this game is too hard to play as a business, there has to be fun in it. And they talked about in the locker room, it was like the atmosphere came back. It was no longer a bunch of cubicles and like the movie, Office Space or whatever that,
Yeah.
the Office or whatever. What is that thing you kids watch?
I
Is
think
it
it's
The
the office.
Office?
Yeah,
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 The Office.
yeah.
Sorry, Office Space is an old movie. But he goes, it was almost like The Office before, and now it's back to being a locker room, music, laughing, wrestling, joking, messing around. I mean, you've got to have that element of fun, don't you?
Yeah, especially when you're talking about the game of football, right? It's not rocket science. This is something that like they keep saying it and it sounds cliche, but it's just the truth, right? This is a game that kids play. And most of these guys, all of these guys were playing this since they were 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. It's supposed to be fun, right? And then you think about all the stress that they have in terms of their body, social media, winning, losing, all of those things. They don't want to think about that all the time. They just want to go and have fun with the game that they love. And that was kind of the message that I got yesterday from their words. And then to your point, Hondo, I mean, I texted you yesterday, man. Like it was it was just a completely different locker room yesterday.
I loved your text getting your vibe.
Yeah, I think that might have been one of the first couple of times that I've texted you midday while in the locker room, but it was so shocking. I had to send a note to you. I couldn't believe it. And I'm sure you remember what I said, but that was not an exaggeration. That was the first time I saw that player smile all season. We walk into the locker room, and the clips are up on social media. Literally, as soon as we walk in the locker room, Devontae is playing basketball in a mini hoop. And I'll be honest with you, me and a couple of the guys in the media, as soon as we walked in, we saw it was as soon as we walked in, Hondo. It wasn't like 5 minutes after. As soon as we walked in, Devontae Adams is hooping, talking, relaxed. It was shocking. I'm not gonna lie to you. It was like, where is the guy? Where are the guys that were here last week? Almost. It was a completely different vibe. But again, the media felt it. I can only
But
imagine
even the
how.
players, but even the players were talking about it.
Yeah, it was. I really couldn't put words in it, and the best words I could come up with are the ones that I texted you because I was shocked on multiple levels from multiple players that they were almost a different person. I must say, but in a good way. They're ready to go. They're excited. And a change needed to be made. no matter what, whatever, and a major change, not just a small one, a major change needed to be made. It was made, and you can already feel how loose they are in the locker room.
As you know, because I had said to you um, when we were in Detroit, I was going to ask Josh this week about, is it time to give up play calling? And I want to go back to Mark Davis because he had to eat some crow to make this firing. And I think it showed him being bold and decisive. All of us, I'm older than you, but all of us in our lives will make bold decisions that fail. I tell my kids all the time, I don't want you to just learn from what I did right. I want
Yeah.
you to learn from what I did wrong. And for Mark, it wasn't okay, I know I gave assurances and everything else. I'm not going to do anything. It was no. Now I know what's right. I'm doing it. I'm going to tell you something. I know a lot of fans don't like Mark Davis. I know a lot of fans do. You and I are not fans. I like him. I think you do as well. But my respect for him, and I didn't ever disrespect him. You know what I thought about him privately.
Yeah.
But my respect went even higher because a lot of owners aren't willing to make changes when they've been resolute. To me, I never root for people to lose their job.
Yes.
And I've communicated with those that are no longer here and shared my thoughts privately that will stay private. But I never root for people to lose their job. But it needed to happen. You and I had this conversation when we talked about assurances were made. They're coming back.
Mm-hmm.
And we both were surprised.
Yeah.
It wasn't like you and I were saying, boy, I hope they, okay.
Yeah.
How many times have I said, he's the owner, it's
Yeah.
his team? But my respect went right through the roof. Your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think in terms of Mark Davis in the situation he found himself in, you have to admire him being able to, in not so many words, admit that the decision he made simply wasn't working out. And on that note alone, a lot of owners, a lot of people in power wouldn't make a move or publicly come out and say, "Hey, I made a mistake." Mark was willing to do that. And he didn't wait till the end of the season, right? He didn't wait until it went all the way down the drain. He said, "You know what?" And just my personal opinion, I think he saw on Monday, hey, not only is the team broken, but the answers are not going to come from these coaches, right? The people that he let go. And I think once he got to that point and it was clear, not just him, but honestly, the entire country, Raider Nation, once it became clear that they needed answers and they didn't have them, Mark did the right thing. He made the gutsy call and he pulled the trigger.
When they didn't pull Brian Hoyer in Chicago and then didn't pull Jimmy for Aiden in Detroit, it was like,
Yeah.
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 All right, let's move on to this team because this is a team. If you saw me on national media this week, this is not a team void of talent. These guys are excited, and I know that Mark is very impressed with what Dan Campbell's done in Detroit, a former player. He's a little bit different than other former players. He doesn't try to act buttoned down.
Yes.
He's still a go guy. I think that they really like, and let's credit, I have not publicly made this statement. Let's credit Champ Kelly
Yeah.
because when he's visiting with Mark about a possibility of a change, he comes out Antonio Pierce.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And that's his guy. And I thought that was when I learned that yesterday, and I haven't shared that publicly, and this podcast is going to be shared probably Saturday. So it'll still be a couple days past. But when I learned that, I thought, man, good for Champ. That's his guy. I think Antonio Pierce has just been a shot of human growth hormone
Yeah.
in this organization. They're excited and they are ready to run through a wall for that guy. I think the Raiders are going to take care of the Giants this weekend.
Listen, 100%. I think I mean, come on, the ties, they speak for themselves, right? In terms of AP's, him playing for the Giants. I think the players are going to, play their hardest just for that alone, let alone the fact that he is a player's coach. And when you think about what, like you said, this team needs, they do need a guy that's played before, right? I think that was a very, very smart decision by Champ to get somebody in there for the next X amount of games, however long it may be, that the players can identify with. And not just that, I think it's worth pointing out you think about it, AP went undrafted, won the Super Bowl as a starting linebacker against one of the greatest offenses to ever play in the NFL, Tom Brady, right? And Randy Moss. Think about that entire team. He's experienced everything from the lowest lows and the highest of highs. There's not anyone in that locker room that he can't identify with. And I think for Champ Kelly to be able to, to pick up on that and put AP in that position, that speaks to his intelligence and how good of a GM he can be.
Gee, I got to remember, I wrote that I thought Champ Kelly should have got the GM job when they hired McDaniels and Ziegler. All right, I want to go to one other area, maybe two, and then I'm going to let you go. Under John Gruden, he hired his GM, Mike Mayock. And although Mike Mayock would voice his opinion, John did whatever John wanted. Damon Arnett, others. Okay, I'm just going to leave it there. And I like Johnny. I love John Gruden. I do love that guy. And I like Mike. Then, even though they tried to make it appear that Ziegler hired McDaniels, McDaniels hired Ziegler. And so there were decisions made that I know Ziegler voiced some disagreement on, but they went with what Josh wanted. My point is this. As they now begin this journey, and I hope it ends up being Champ Kelly, I think you have to have a coach and GM in harmony, but there has to be a divide. And coaches get such tunnel vision when the GMs are looking at the picture from the wide angle and coaches are right here. I think there has to be a divide. I think you have to have a GM who has final call. And whether it's Champ or whoever, I think Mark Davis has to go in that direction. I think Mark, and I'm going to get into this a little bit more details in an article that's coming, so I don't want to give a lot of information. I understand why Mark wanted it, but I also think Mark needs to go with a clear general manager who's in charge. Can I have your opinion?
Yeah, so and I'll kind of lean on you when it comes to this, but I feel like most cases in terms of the NFL, the GM generally has more say over things than the coach. So I think that's where the Raiders are going to try to go. Like you said, they're going to have a very thorough process in terms of finding a GM, finding a head coach. I personally hope and think that Champ, should get that position because he's already, been in those conversations, been in those rooms with those guys, but they're still going to do their search. And I agree with you. There has to be some kind of barrier between owner, GM, coach. There has to be, because once you start mixing those three together, it gets tough to be successful. And I think that's where, Mark Davis is going to go moving forward. Whoever he puts in as the GM, that person, and then the head coach, they're going to have that divide. And I think it's going to have a better result going forward.
Yeah, and I'm going to tell you, I'm going to be reporting on this, some real inside baseball on Champ Kelly and just some disagreements respectfully. He
Yeah.
loves Dave Ziegler and Josh McDaniels. I'm not trying to imply that there was hatred or animus.
Yeah.
Just some of the big decisions that have been made under Josh McDaniels, the Champ made it very clear he didn't agree with, and he earned a ton of respect in that building. I'm looking forward to sharing all that inside information with everybody. All right, Zeke,
Yes, sir.
my guy,
My
my
guy.
buddy, my pal, my
Yes, sir.
friend, you have picked Raiders 24-10.
Listen, I know Sunday is the day. I think
I know.
I'm
I
thinking.
think they're winning too. I think they're winning too.
I think the fact that they literally have we really don't know what's coming. We can guess what's coming from them offensively, but we don't really know. I don't think the Giants really know, and I think that's going to play into their hands. On top of obviously AP, the emotion of the day, being back home. So yeah, I think they're going to get that W.
I think we talked about some of it.
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah, I think it's going to be a lot of fun. Listen, Zeke, as always, I love working with you, and I owe you
Likewise.
lunch. So
Yes,
next
sir.
week, but probably I'm thinking next Well, I'm gonna probably end up owing you a few lunches. So maybe let's just plan on after practice Monday,
Yeah,
Tuesday, and Wednesday. I'll take you to
let me
lunch. How's
know.
that? 3 days of lunch with me. You're gonna be like, I don't want to go to lunch with my boss 3 days in a row, but
Let's
I'm
go.
paying.
Yes, sir. Appreciate it.
All right. From Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast, part of the Fans First Sports Network. I'm beat writer Hondo Carpenter. This is my assistant beat writer Zeke Trezevant. Just talking about the condition, taking you inside the locker room, giving you a lot of inside baseball. Hope you enjoyed it. We'll see y'all back here the next time.